I can. Hi, ladies.
Yoo-hoo.
Do you see me? Because oh,
I don't see anyone. I just see,
okay.
you know.
It's coming, I guess. Because all I see is my name.
Oh, right. No.
And I don't hear Siobhan.
Siobhan, you're on mute. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Mine, I'm not coming up.
Maybe it's just trying to do her.
Hi. Hi,
Okay.
everyone.
Hi. Can you take
Hello.
everyone's? Hi. We can hear you. Can you take everyone's screen down? You know the
You're breaking
unblock the. Can you? Perfect.
Okay, I
Hi,
see
Simone.
her.
Hi,
Hi.
Simone. I see Simone, yeah.
Hi.
We just checking the mic, ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I
can
can
hear
see you,
Simone.
Simone. Yeah, I could hear you.
Good.
Miss Butterfield, I see your
Hi.
name. That's your
Yeah.
video.
I don't know why. I'm going to go out and come back, okay?
Okay.
No problem there. No problem.
Oh, wait. Oh.
I see you. we don't want to miss all that pretty makeup and face.
I
Okay.
had to press a button.
Yes.
Here we go.
Janae. We can see Janae.
Who's AS?
I'm not
Missing
sure.
something?
I'm not sure.
Oh, that might be somebody, a guest, I guess, coming in early.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I'm a guest coming in.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
I'm not doing anything nefarious, I promise.
Not a problem, honey.
So, Siobhan, you're a Mac lady, yeah?
Yes, a former Mac lady. You forgot I did Deborah's makeup.
I didn't know who Siobhan Hollis was. And I'm
You
like,
forgot me and I've been in your house. Yes, I did. I certainly did. Hi, Janae.
How you doing?
Okay.
All right, ladies, say.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, make sure your mics, I guess, are muted until we open up the panel to the guests. And we're gonna go Facebook Live. So give me a few minutes to transition over. Yeah. And we'll go from there, okay?
Yeah.
So everybody, everybody looks wonderful, and we'll start it in a few minutes.
Right.
I just want to get. Can I get a water? I just.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
7 minutes. You got 7 minutes. You can go ahead.
Question for you, Siobhan.
Yes, ma'am.
When we are talking, when the panel is speaking, do you want us muted or unmuted, or what do you want?
You can, let's see now. I guess you can unmute as the panelist because it might be a question we want you all to engage. So you can unmute so you won't have to, worry about trying to mute. So yeah, once I introduce everyone and we go from there, feel free to keep yourself unmuted. Just the guests, participants can keep themselves muted unless they have a Q&A at the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Cheryl.
Cheryl works with you, right? Hi, Cheryl.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it's 1:53. Now time can take real long, but it's 1:53, and here we go. Perfect. Look at that. Perfect timing. That was 1 minute, Samantha. 1 minute.
And Janae gotta get her water.
basically, what we really want to see is just a relaxed discussion with everyone. Just we're sitting in our living room having a discussion.
And we do, to add to Tina, I know, Janae, you're from the police. I know you're limited and restricted as to what you can say. So we quite are aware of that when questions are being asked, as well as Mr. Smith-Bean as well. I know you can go, so far into what we may want to ask. Right. We also, out of respect for, Miss Chevelle, we might mention a little something because we have to be cognizant of what's going on with that situation, but we realize that it's still under police investigation. So we don't want to kind of, offend the family and offend the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
agree.
We'll try to keep track of that. So we have 5 more minutes and then we'll shoot live. And we'll go from there.
I have a quick little disclaimer. I just want to say in the beginning that I'm not I'm not giving legal advice. We're just
Right.
stating what the
Yes.
law is.
Yes.
Understood.
And you could say that, Siobhan. You could say Ms. Smith is not here to give legal advice, but
Yes.
just to give information about and what's available, what resources, and what you
Yes.
can
Right.
do.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And everything, just so we stay focused, everything is really around domestic violence, all that other stuff, I'm not interested in all of that. We just want to get this conversation going and just bring and keep in mind that we're raising a greater awareness in our community for all of our women in this community.
Cool.
That's it. Anything anybody wish not to talk about? Everybody got the bottoms on in case you have to stand up. All those things are
Yes.
important. Okay, great. Well,
I wish
What
we
am
could talk about
I
that.
missing?
several
What bottom
disclaimers.
up? Depends on something if you gotta go.
No. People only get dressed half up for their meeting.
Oh, okay. In case
People
if the
only-
computer drop it's like, oh.
Right. Some people only get dressed only half up. So some people be in their underwear talking on their Zoom calls.
Exactly. And I'm sure I'm not the only one seeing all those nightmares. So. Tons of them, right?
I'll be right back.
Okay,
No
we got
problem.
time.
There were times when I've heard of a friend of mine telling me that she was on a Zoom call one day and she didn't know the camera was on and she was doing something else and that was a problem. I was like, oh no.
Oh my goodness, it's just become like a hilarious, it's comedy hour when that happens. It don't even make any sense getting upset.
Yeah. You're in your home, you're in your comfort space. So it's like, hey, everything would happen, or anything.
Yeah.
Somebody just say, turn your camera off, turn your camera off.
Yeah. Just turn it off. Yeah, but it is what it is.
Good afternoon. I think I wasn't live, so good afternoon. This is Cheryl Minus.
Yes, you're there. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl.
We all spoke to you earlier.
But I saw
Yeah, she
I
probably
was
didn't.
not able to respond. So good
Got you.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. And good afternoon, Miss Can. I'm not sure who that person is. But
I know Miss Cam very well.
Okay.
Yes.
Siobhan, is there you have everybody? I'm on gallery view so I can see everybody who's talking at one time, right?
I do. Yeah, I have. Okay.
It's like Brady Bunch. Hi.
Yeah. I put it on that. So she's saying welcome. Welcome, Miss Can.
Hi, Miss Swan. How are you? Miss Swan, well, I don't know how many of you know Miss Swan. I don't know if she still is, but I know she was or is a counselor at Santa Against Abuse. Are you still there? Or hotline?
Yes, just hotline volunteer, yes.
Okay, right. Okay, so that's Miss Swan.
Hi, Miss Swan.
Hi, Miss Swan.
Nice to meet you all. Nice to see you here.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for being here.
I'm glad I heard about it.
Yeah, well, it was in the paper, so we wanted everybody to hear about it. So thankfully, you read the paper or saw our flyer, right?
Yeah, on Facebook.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Siobhan, can I edit? I don't know if you could see if you could let me edit my name, because I could put my name there rather than Smith being company.
Oh, right.
I think it'll let me do that.
I'm not sure without
Okay.
cutting off. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
It
There,
will, but I can't remember how.
By
Yeah.
just by the button mute, you see 3 little dots.
Yeah, I
Okay.
pressed that, but it's not giving me the
Let me see if I have it allowed.
If you click
Usually see you say rename.
yeah,
The host may have to be able to do it.
you can
Hold
do
on.
it yourself. Though. You can do it yourself. I think
Uh,
if you put so you don't have a rename button on those 3 little dots.
Yeah.
I might
Didn't
not
give me
have
that.
activated or allowed it.
Right
I
up in the
think
corner?
that's yeah.
Right up in the corner
That's
somewhere,
all right.
you can't change it?
No, it doesn't give me it doesn't say rename. You know how it says rename and you can change it, but it doesn't give me that option.
Mine's don't
Pin
even have it.
video,
Maybe because we're all on.
profile. Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about it. That's good. We're good.
Okay, we have a minute and then we're gonna go. And please, ladies, if we get cut off, we know how technology go. It will be recorded. So if you want to share the copy or for future to listen to yourself, we will be able to supply that for you. Provided the electricity don't go. I know what that.
Nah.
I
Not
can't
gonna
do
I
nothing
don't think
about
that's
that.
gonna happen.
We'll have to take what we say.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Okay, so it's 2 p.m. I'm gonna upload Facebook Live. Just bear with me. And then we'll get started.
We decided yesterday, Sharon and I, who needs a tack person when you have women? We worked on that.
We could do it.
They'll figure it out.
We could figure it out.
Oh my goodness.
Tina, you ready?
Hey, I'm always ready.
Okay.
Mhm. Just making sure it's getting on my page.
Fine. Fine, fine, fine. Everybody mic is still on, panelists?
No, the panelists' mics are off. I mean,
Okay,
the
yes,
panelists'
yes.
mic should be on at all times. Everyone else's mic off.
Yes. Okay.
Miss Smith Bean,
Oh, her mic's off.
her mic's on. Oh, whatever. Yeah.
It's on.
We're live now. It says we're live now.
Yeah,
So
so once I start, then we go from there. Okay, what's going on? All right. Okay, 1 second. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining in our live discussion this afternoon. Women Warriors Part 2 series, actually. Our discussion this afternoon would be focusing on domestic violence in Bermuda. My name is Siobhan Hollis. I am the founder of Foreign Women Club of Bermuda, and I will be your host for this afternoon. Before I introduce our very special guest and co-host, please allow me a few minutes of your time. Over the past few months of 2020, global reports have warned of the perfect storm manifesting in an increased call to helplines, online supports, NGOs, and police reports. Whilst most government has put in place resources for the wider community, due to this pandemic, however, the imposed shelter in place evidence have shown that there have been an increase in domestic violence, verbal attacks, and incidents globally, including Bermuda. And despite their efforts, not enough has been done to mitigate potential harm to the most vulnerable in society, victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence, as we know it, can affect all societies, no matter one's socioeconomic status, age, race, gender, nationality, religion, or sexual orientation. And the effect continues to cause long-term emotional, psychological, and mental issues on victims. Domestic violence also impacts our community from both an economic and social standpoint. Therefore, it is incumbent upon each of us to do our part in this fight against human rights violation. Today, we would like to entreat you to get involved and support all victims of domestic violence. Without further ado, please allow me to introduce our very special guest panelists and co-hosts. This afternoon, our guest panelists will be Mrs. Simone Smith-Bean, attorney and managing partner of Smith-Bean & Co. Mrs. Elaine Butterfield, executive director of Women Resource Center. Mrs. Janae Smith, Detective Constable of the Bermuda Police Services and the Domestic Violence Liaison Officer. And my very special co-host, Mrs. Tina Laws, founder of Under Construction Bermuda and Relationship Specialist. Welcome, ladies. Now,
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Before I go any further, Simone, would you like to just state your disclaimer to the audience, and then we will have Tina proceed from there.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to make it clear that I'm not here to give legal advice at this time, but I will be able to answer any questions or provide any information that is very much so readily available on public domains, and to assist any person who may think that they need some particular points covered. So I will be able to give some broad feedback as it relates to certain instances, but just not be able to give any legal advice on any specific instances.
Thank you very much. We will now turn over to Mrs. Tina Laws. Please introduce yourself and we'll get started.
Well, just something of a little extra to what Ms. Hollis mentioned. I'm Tina Laws, and yes, I am the founder of Under Construction, where we aim to support every woman. Yes, we know men are victims as well. We're very clear on that. I've worked with both, but we support women victims of domestic violence as a supportive service, a private supportive service. And so today what we want to do is just have a nice, easy discussion about the things in which and the challenges that many face on our island of Bermuda. And so what I want to do today is just ask a few questions and just feel free to chime in. Everyone on the panel, feel free, those of you who are watching by Facebook or even by via Zoom, to just ask questions. And what we aim to do is give you at least 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes toward the end of the discussion so that we may respond to each of your questions as best as we can. So let's start with the first question. And this is for Mrs. Bean. However, anyone who has knowledge of this on this panel, please feel free to chime in because everyone's voice matters. Okay, as it relates to the foreign victims of domestic violence, what is your greatest challenge with our Bermuda laws? Or do you see any challenges?
As it relates to, it depends on the circumstances. Is the person married to a Bermudian? Is the person not married to a Bermudian? When you have those circumstances, when a person is married to a Bermudian and they're not a Bermudian, there are some bars to them reaching assistance through the legal community. Legal aid is an option for Bermudians who are going through particular situations. They can make an application. But in some instances, that does not occur for foreign women. And so I think that one of the biggest challenges is being able to reach the legal system with funding and having that sufficient funding to allow them to pursue any particular legal actions that they may need to.
Thank you. Thank you. You have a question, Siobhan?
Yes, this question is for Detective Smith. I, as a non-Bermudian myself, who's married to a Bermudian, and just asking on, a question on behalf of some of the non-Bermudians in my group. Could you safely walk us through the procedure if, let's say, a foreign spouse contacts the police, make a report? I have no clue, so you will be teaching me as well. So if you don't mind, just walk me through the process in terms of what you do or how you can assist. Thank you.
Okay. So when it comes to reporting, it's not really whether Bermudian or not. The process is, if officer either attends the residence or you attend a particular station on the island, it's our job to take the initial report. And that means just gathering all details that pertain to what has happened either then or previously. And then it's our responsibility to then find out whether or not you as the victim or the complainant wishes to make a formal report, which consists of prosecution. However, we do liaise with specific supporting agencies because we know that there was, certain lines that we can cross when it comes to a Bermudian versus a foreign spouse of a Bermudian. But after that process has started, statements are taken, and whether it be just a statement from the complainant or witnesses that may have seen it, it's then our duty to then arrest the individual for the offense, put questions to the individual, and then prepare a file that goes to our supervisor. Once it goes to our supervisor, it's then sent up, for the Department of Public Prosecutions, who has the final say on what exactly the charge is going to be and if they accept the evidence that's being given. So sometimes you may find yourselves in a predicament where they may feel it's not enough evidence at this time to prosecute, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen another time around.
So can I just piggyback on that, Ms. Constable Smith? In the instance of, because I know oftentimes women in particular have this idea that if they report it, they have to drop the charges unless, or if they report it, they drop the charges so that their partner is not taken into court. Is there a way where they could come in, just to confirm for everybody, how many times, that's what I should have said, I'm so sorry, how many times can one report, come in to you and report that they have been abused?
As many times as they want. We find that a lot of, especially in my role, I find that a lot of complainants are, reporting it for information purposes. They're not necessarily going through the prosecution process because they don't want their loved ones arrested, and I get that. So it's my job to just get them whatever support it is that they need, so that because it's a big, it's a lot. It's a lot to go in front of a judge and tell them what's been going on, and so that's where the psychological effect comes into play. So it's no stop or a certain number that the amount of times that they can come in and report it, but definitely the support is what's going to help them to one day have that courage to stand prosecute.
Yes. Okay. So that's something I really wanted to get out there, because sometimes people feel as though, oh my goodness, if I report, let me drop those charges, because in actual fact, they haven't pressed charges. It's just a matter of coming in and reporting that this has happened to them, and not just for today, but for tomorrow or next year, right? Just to have it on record that this actual partner has been abusive to them, and it has happened 15 times, so that in the event something happens to that partner or them, we have it on record to note that this person has attempted on numerous occasions to press charges, although they haven't. But anybody knows victims of domestic violence, it may take them 7 to 100 times before they actually press charges. So I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah.
For Mrs. Butterfield, you are the executive director of Women Resource Center, and I know you have like a wide scope of what you do in terms of the community, or what arm you play in regards to domestic violence. Could you share with those who might not know of your organization? Could you give us some inside information, please?
Absolutely. What the Women's Resource Center does, we exist to empower women. What we do is we provide training and education and support services that I will share a bit more later on, that help women to make wise choices in their lives, give them the tools and the information, the education they need, and the support they need to make those right choices. We actually do not provide crisis support for women victims of domestic violence, but once a woman has navigated through the process with either Tina Laws Consulting or the Center Against Abuse, and she needs to rebuild her life, that's where we can provide the support services in all kinds of areas. And we are a women's resource center. So anything that they need, any place they need, they don't know where to go for what, we can connect them with that service. And we don't just tell them you need to try that agency. What we actually do is make the connection, make the appointment, go with them if we have to, whatever it takes to provide that kind of support.
I just wanted to add a little extended question for non-Bermudians. That's basically my voice is in that realm. For those that English is not their first language, does the Women Resource Center has someone, let's say, who can speak Spanish, or someone who's able to translate? And the reason why I'm saying this is because I've worked in cosmetics, and I know the language barrier when I have foreigners who, trying to explain what they want.
You are You are spot on. We have translators who can provide support as far in Spanish and Portuguese.
Oh,
I will tell you though that there isn't as much of a demand, but the service is available to people. I talked about training and education, but I also need to say we also provide counseling support services. And that can include counseling for, you know, depression or the trauma that someone's been through, even in domestic violence, should they decide to use our services. But it can also be helping them to get an action plan for their lives, which many women will need to do once they've gone through the trauma of domestic violence.
Tina?
So this is the question I have for our attorney, Mrs. Bean. As it relates to being a non-Bermudian woman married to a Bermudian,
Yes.
have you ever been in a situation that has warranted your voice, but because of your status, you remained silent?
There have been certain situations, there are situations where a foreign person may have been married to a Bermudian for a while, and they may be on the cusp of getting their Bermudian status. And their relationship may be continuing through because of the relationship and the agreement of them getting this particular Bermudian status. We're being honest, because a lot of people stay married to each other for the purposes of making sure their status is confirmed. That's the reality. But they will say nothing. They will go through a lot of turmoil or take a lot of issues because they really need to get that status. Because once you go past, if you are married to a Bermudian and you are divorced prior to your 10-year mark, you don't have the opportunity to get that status. You only have the right to be here and stay here as long as your children reach a particular age. And so you may have built a whole life here. You have children who are Bermudian and you have friends who are Bermudians, and you now are been put in a position where you cannot continue to stay and flourish within the island. So that is one of the issues that I see that has become a pressing thing and a problem over the years.
Yes, because what's really strong, my belief behind this is so strong because I actually just had a client who is close to getting her status, but because the relationship has been in turmoil for the last 4 years, she's actually stayed in that home with that partner so that she doesn't risk being able to get her status.
And it happens.
Yeah,
and you know, go ahead, sorry.
And so basically that's it. And so, you know, her thing is she really wants to get out. She really needs to get out, not just for her, but for her children's sake. But she's very afraid that if she walks away or moves in another home for the sake of her safety, you know, she wouldn't get her status. And so I think that's an area where many, many, many non-Bermudian women struggle in.
See, these issues go across so many different levels because you're talking about an immigration issue that is very stringent. They're saying that if it is that you've made it to the 10-year mark and you literally have to prove that you are still in a relationship at a sense in order for them to allow you to get this status. And it's a problem for a lot of women who have been here 9 years, 8 years on the 8-year mark, and then all of a sudden their husband may be doing things that are not right. And they make them uncomfortable in a relationship, or they may be suffering in the relationship, emotional damage and all type of things. And then they have to be forced to remain because if they do not wait, they will have an issue. But I will say that if they get to a point when they cannot do it anymore, very important as a foreign woman, I'm a foreign woman living in Bermuda. I'm married to a Bermudian. I may have, it's not everyone has relationships as close and people don't have family near. And so to make sure that you are covered or you can even go through the process of getting assistance, you know that as a spouse, you do have a right to legal aid as a spouse, especially if you have Bermudian children involved in the situation. So you do have a way of getting legal representation, but you also should think if you are outside of a particular financial bracket, like your husband was making or you were making a certain amount of money, then you have to have a savings. So we have to live differently than a lot of other people. You have to be very cautious on how you spend your money and what your emergency fund is for, because sometimes you may have to pick up and leave as well. And so remember that there are a lot of things and avenues that you must take in order for you to protect yourself, but you have to take the first step by saying something and contacting someone like Tina or the Women's Resource Center of Miss Butterfield or a Women's Crisis Center. You have to take that step so that you can get the support. But if you sit in silence, then nobody can assist and we won't be able to help.
Right. So on the back end of that, what happens when we have a non-Bermudian wife or dependent here on their partner's work permit and they aren't working as yet and they haven't any funds to put in the bank? Do we have any services available to them if they so choose to take out a restraining order or seek supportive services? It may be housing. Of course, when there's anti-gang abuse, they was government just supported them this year, so that's amazing. We know they had that funding to be able to house women, so we have that opportunity. But what other services do we have for even counseling, like Mrs. Butterfield had mentioned about Women's Resource Center? What other services do we have for foreign nationals that need to get out or need that supportive services and don't have any funds to pay for it?
I'm going to let one of the crisis centers, somebody here from the crisis center, the Women's Crisis Center, because I believe that there is a service currently being operated where they can make the application to the court for the domestic violence protection order. That is the first step when you're trying to gain some semblance of separation. But the issue with that is that if you don't have any money and you don't have anywhere to go, there are no other resources or last minute ditched places where you can go. I do believe that one of the organizations do have a halfway house, I believe, that just was given not too long ago. But that is a very difficult position because you have to then be able to leave that residence and you have to be able to rehouse yourself and your child. And if you don't have any supportive system, it's very difficult to be able to rest with that. But I let one of the ladies from the centers indicate those resources.
Yeah. Elaine, did you want to share?
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback on that. You know, I cannot say enough the importance of having some kind of plan. And even if you cannot, if a woman is in an unhealthy relationship or in the situation of domestic violence, even if you cannot come up with that plan on your own, particularly in the case of non-Bermudian women, you know, go to somebody, come to the Women's Resource Center and allow us to help you to work out a exit strategy. And, you know, that's not going to take 5 days. As Ms. Smith just said, you know, it's a very difficult place to be in suddenly because we currently do not have the resources to support women in that situation. I'll just interject right now that we, the Women's Resource Center, in conjunction, in partnership with Habitat for Humanity, are establishing a transformational living center, which will be a homeless shelter for up to 10 women with up to 3 children. We're working on that right now. We hope to have that available at the end of the year. But we won't just have those families in residence there, and they will be involved in a transformational plan to transform their lives so that when they leave, it was not just a place to stay, but they will get the tools they need to lead more productive lives, including the children. But we will also have a couple of lock-off spaces that we're hoping to use for emergency purposes such as this. But we all know that it's not enough. So that's why we're really big on preventive education, empowerment tools. We're helping women to come in and sit down and work out an exit strategy if they need to get off the island, you know. And as I said, we work in conjunction with the Center Against Abuse and, you know, Tina Law's consulting and other agencies. But I cannot say enough about how important it is to have a plan once you see things are not going right.
I wanted to, if I may, elaborate on that. not all foreign Bermudian spouses have children or choose to for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And I find that in most cases with assistance, I'm asking on behalf, those demographics seems to go unrecognized, their needs seems to go unmet. I agree with having a plan.
Mhm.
However, you know, realistically, just like with the sudden impact of COVID-19, someone can be caught up, you know,
I agree.
kind of out of the norm. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping, I just want to kind of digress a bit. I'm hoping that we could get a legislative body on one of our upcoming series, and also a representative from the Department of Immigration, because this is a very deep subject matter. And I think it needs even more attention. There's a lot being done by the organization like yours, Mrs. Butterfield, etc. However, we really need a serious community awareness of this. Now I'm gonna pause a little bit. I see a question asking, and any one of the panelists can answer. Why does the Bermudian spouse have to sign the status paper? And I agree, because I agree. So if someone can, I don't know, perhaps can they give some insight?
I can say that it's part of the it's a requirement on the application. And it's been a requirement for a while. I agree. I don't think that that should be necessary, but I do believe that it's as a result of making sure that you guys are still a cohesive relationship, because they are actually not liking to give status or pretend relationships and grant status to persons who are pretending to be in a marriage. So it's to try and quell sham marriages in a sense. So they want the agreement of the husband in a sense to do that. What the impetus behind it is. But there, like you said, there's situations where you may still be married to the person and they refuse to sign it just because they refusing to sign it, not just because, you know, for no reason, or they want to be nasty. And so it's true, that's an issue that should be dealt with. Maybe we should be talking about why they should be retained in status even though they get to a certain point, or lower the amount of years that you have to wait to get the status. Because after 5 years, if you're in a relationship for 5 years and you're still having to go another 4 years in turmoil, I think that's unusual punishment for somebody who really needs to be able to maintain the lifestyle that they would have come accustomed to here in Bermuda. And that's what divorce is pretty much indicating. They wish to, you know, they try and separate the assets in a way where you are able to continue somewhat sort of a life that you came accustomed to. And being here is a life that people will become accustomed to. And so it should be important that they look at those situations. But we have had so many instances where women have gone through very bad situations and cannot leave because they don't have the money, or end up getting sent out, and then they end up having a problem where they have to leave their child behind, having to leave because they cannot stay any longer, and then they end up forfeiting their child. And so there's a lot of instances, there's a lot of stories that we may not hear and people are going through right now. So it's a very important topic, and hopefully it is something that the legislative bodies will pick up at some point.
Yes. And so what I want to do is, I see another question here. And as I alluded to earlier, the Center Against Abuse, Ms. Swan, on behalf of Center Against Abuse, she's actually a volunteer hotline worker. So she mentions here, and let me make note of it, the Center Against Abuse does offer housing for women in domestic violence crises. Yes, the housing has been provided to women and is confidential. Please contact the Center Against Abuse for more details. Yeah, so
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing another question. How can you help two foreigners who are in domestic violence and only one of them is on work permit? Anyone can answer that. Perhaps Detective Smith, police or matter.
Say the question again.
How can you help two foreigners who are in domestic violence and only one of them is on a work permit?
From a police perspective, I mean, unless the matter is reported to police, I really don't know too much about it. But unless the matter is reported to police, we can do the necessary from a criminal aspect if that's what they are looking for. But if they're not, then they're going to have to speak with some of our supporting agencies to kind of get them the help in between the court proceedings.
And so that's a good point, Detective Constable, is that even if they reach out to you guys for support and assistance, you do have that collaborative relationship in the community whereby you can contact different agencies to support their needs.
Yeah.
Hi, I got on. I used that password. I got on.
Okay, put
Can you mute, please?
My laptop
Mm.
Okay, we have another
And they
I have
use the
another
hashtag
question.
too. It's hashtag capital S TOP capital
Can you-
ABUSC.
Okay, she's trying to get somebody on.
I got on. Yeah.
Okay, hi. We'll continue.
But my
Now,
audio for some reason.
due to this global pandemic and government-imposed curfews, there have been a spike in domestic violence.
Hold on, ladies. Hi, ma'am, TR. I just see TR.
Just barely. My.
I can hear you though. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just gonna repeat. Now, we recently saw in the Royal Gazette, there has been a spike in domestic violence. We'll start locally in Bermuda. However, there have been a significant spike in the violence globally. And it's been from verbal attacks to abuse to sexual violence, etc. This is an open question to each of our panelists. I would like to know what would be some of the recommendation or some sort of support, or what would be your thoughts in regards to this matter? You know, domestic violence is really a deep subject. So,
and a response to that will take from today to next week, but
honestly,
yeah, but in short, you know, the various options that you can have is reach out to one of your agencies, one of your services. And let me just pause on there. I often tell people we have an option, like we have that option too, and we have to give people options, right? Because we have Dr. Emery, we have Dr. Wilmont, right? We have Ultimate Imaging for our mammograms, and then we have Bermuda Healthcare. So we have to give people options. And so, you know, part of what I do and why I do what I do is because, you know, everybody in our community needs to know the various services and the various people that operate in this capacity. I just wanted to pause and say that for a moment, with their expertise. But what I want to say is that you have those various services that you can contact for support. And as everyone already knows, if you don't, Santa Against Abuse is a registered charity in Bermuda, the only domestic violence registered charity. So that wouldn't be hard to find, right? You can look that up like everybody else does. But there are people like me and people like Donna Trott. There are so many of us that work privately. And so I often say we have to give people that option. So if you need that support, that emotional support, we are here for you, one. Secondly, if you're ready to get away, Santa Against Abuse has just mentioned, one of the telephone operators, she just mentioned that they have a supportive services for housing. You can try reaching out to them, and I know there's various steps you have to take, like a restraining order and all of those things that take place, 2 to 3 months, but you can contact them for that service, right? And then there's the police, the domestic violence liaison officer. You can contact her if you want to report, not necessarily press charges, but report just for the sake of getting it out on paper for your sake. Okay, and then there's also the Women's Resource Center. If you're just looking for support to say, you know what, I want to better myself in this community. I want to do something, different workshops. I want to learn how to save money. I want to learn how to prepare for a new job or prepare to be execute a leave out of Bermuda. You know, there are so many things you can do. And on the down low, you can just walk outside of your house and go for a walk. You know, so there are various things that you can do as to being locked down. And we're not as locked down as we were weeks ago. So now we have a little bit more flexibility to get out there, to make those phone calls, to get that extra exercise, to contact your cousin or your mother to say, listen, I need to talk, or can I see you 6 feet away just for that space? So there are various things that we can do in our community as it relates to domestic violence. There's no one thing. There are so many things. And Mrs. Bean just mentioned, we'll be here until next week if we was to talk about the whys and the whats and the whens, right? Because like I always say, it's not cookie cutter. There are so many things and so many stories behind domestic violence. Let me know if I left anything out.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I agree with Elaine as well. Make a plan.
Yes.
If you don't have a plan and you don't have already saved the money to get out, you have to do that. But if it's so bad that you're you're not in the position, call somebody to come and get you. Don't sit there and have to go through and endure a continued abuse. If you are ready and you can call somebody at the center of abuse. You can contact I'm sure anybody will come and pick you up. 24 hours. They will come and get you, right? And then you make sure. And if you have a child or you don't have a child, don't just make the phone call, but have a plan. Yeah. And there are some situations where you may not be in harm or you may not be in danger, but you're afraid to get a divorce. So if that's the case, save your money. Make sure that you have a fund that is on the side ready to go when it's time for you to pull that trigger. Don't leave it to the court to decide when you're going to be able to get coverage, because a lot of times women don't have the luxury of getting court orders for their husbands to pay for their divorce. It rarely happens. And very rich ladies get it. I can tell you that the very not well-off ladies are the ones who are not getting those types of orders. And that's the reality of the situation. So you have to be ready, you have to be prepared, and you must save your monies, because you need to make sure that you have the right representation available to you so that you can make the necessary applications that need to be made. And there are some special applications that have to be made, especially if you want to make an application to leave the jurisdiction with a Bermudian child. That in itself is a process, and it has to be done through the courts.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Samantha. The other thing I just wanted to share really quick, I'm sorry, Elaine, is that seeking support, you can also, because I know for myself personally and other clients that Miss Constable Smith here, she's also a great source of support. Remember, she's not there to help you. She's not there to take you to court per se, like locking him up, but she's there to be a support along the way. So as the domestic violence liaison officer, she's also a great source of support to call and just say, listen, this is what I'm dealing with. I really don't know what to do, how to do it. And sometimes people just want to get it off their chest. Sometimes they just want to have a 10, 15, 20 minute, even an hour conversation with you just to get it off your chest, just to let you know something's going on and just to have someone to listen. And so, sorry, Constable Smith, but that's what Constable Smith is also there to do. I just wanted to share that. Okay, go ahead, Elaine. I jumped in.
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback again on Simone, that some of the workshops that we have, because we're talking about preparation, even after the fact, preparing yourself to start your new life, we have quarterly legal clinics. These are free workshops. We also have, we do a partnership, free workshop with Belco, how to reduce your electricity bill. Employment readiness, we have a partnership with ACON. Wills and estate planning with Trott and Duncan. Understanding money, HSBC Limited. Understanding immigration matters, the Human Rights Commission does a partnership workshop with us. And all of these workshops are free. Other workshops include assertiveness training, work-life balance, mothers raising daughters, self-esteem boot camps for girls, and self-esteem boot camps for women. We also have a mediation divorce services that we recommend to McClellan and Associates. Those divorces are through mediation. They're a lot cheaper and they're a lot less stressful. And we have a workshop coming up that I hope everyone will hear about shortly called Reinventing Yourself. That's going to be an online workshop like this. And it's a 3-part series which walks you through, looking at how you think about yourself, how you think about, your finances, and how to make a plan for your future. That's a very successful workshop that we run. including breakfast at the Women's Resource Center, but we're going to do it online and it's completely free. So please, we encourage people to take advantage of those things because it gives you the tools that you need to navigate through some of these challenges that we encounter as women, particularly women that are not Bermudian.
There is a question. It's saying, what can family members do if a victim chooses not to report domestic violence or press charges? And we know, let's be real, sometimes it's very hard, and sometimes we judge the victim and say, well, why he or she keeps going back. So what can that person do? Anyone can answer that for me, please.
So what I would suggest is that firstly, me being a survivor, one, and working with victims of domestic violence, as well as being a relationship coach, what I will say is that it can become very daunting to a family member. So what I would suggest is you to get support first, right? And then secondly, because as we know, there's very little you can say when we're in a relationship and we think we're in love sometimes, or we think that we're going to be in these relationships for whatever the reasons are. It may become very draining and stressful for that family, loved one, friend, colleague, or significant other that's dealing with these situations. It may become very stressful. So what I would suggest is that if you aren't certain how to, if you've tried everything in your power to intervene in this relationship and nothing has worked, what you can probably do is reach out to me or the other various services in Bermuda that can help you better relate the message to them, or even so much so as bringing them in for support. I've had situations where I've sat in with moms and daughters, you know, where the mom has said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And so we've sat and worked together, and they've been pretty successful. I actually still work with the young ladies, but, you know, so you have to use your resources, reach out to the various agencies, even Women's Resource Center. I know I have a lot of clients that I refer there just for support base, for that type of support that they're looking for. And a lot of times you can just speak to someone to say, listen, well, try this or try that, or come and be a part of a mother-daughter workshop, or certain things like that. There are various things you can do, but just what you need to know is don't force, because what would happen is you'll push them away, and it would be very hard for you to reel them back in.
So I want to ask you a question, Tina, and it may be the elephant in the room. As a non-Bermudian, and, you know, my experience with many, you know, stories I've heard, and knowing some stuff from being in Bermuda almost 2 decades. Sometimes it's not as easy as people may say. When I say that, meaning the trust issue. Some non-Bermudians, and I, you know, like I said, they felt let down by the system. They felt that, okay, Bermuda, as we know it, is a small knit community, and somehow everybody's related. It's just like my country, Bahamas. Somehow we, you know, we tend to have close-knit family and relatives. And some feel that they cannot trust where they need to go to get that help. What would your suggestion be? And that's like a main focus point. They don't trust the person they're speaking to. They don't feel comfortable. Maybe there is a language barrier, and we know some stigmas too. You know, you're married Bermudian for this or that. It doesn't matter. The person is here. Their family is not here. They can't just reach out to a neighbor who they don't know or might not have built a relationship with, or may not have as much friends in Bermuda. And even if someone's from their same country, or, you know, where they're from, it might not be comfortable. So let's open up that can and answer that for those who are watching, who just don't trust. Going to a local entity or speaking with a Bermudian first. And like I said, I've heard the stories, and people have entrusted things with me. So if you can answer that for me, I appreciate it.
Sure. Well, let me just first say, all women in abusive relationships have trust issues. So whether we were born and raised in Bermuda or not, we all have these issues, because the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, we deal with a lot of embarrassment, shame, fear, and all those things. So that's every woman's struggle. Let me just first say that. Secondly, What I will say is this, like every other woman, because what we have to realize is whether you're a non-Bermudian or not, or Bermudian, we all struggle with the similar feelings and emotions and thoughts and doubts, right? And so what I often say is this, everyone has a breaking point. We all have a breaking point. I just believe, very strong on this, I just believe that if our resources are out there often, if our marketing steps up its game in Bermuda as it relates to domestic violence, it will be that one day, that one day, that one time, and when that person sees that notice or that thing in the paper or our faces today, where they may break down and say, you know, I can trust that person. We also need to know, like I mentioned earlier, right? We also need to know that, you know, we don't just have one source. We have several sources, and Bermuda has several experts. I'm an expert, right, in my area. So we have several experts. So we have to give people options. And so I often say it's not necessarily that people don't want to come, foreigners or Bermudians don't want to speak up. Sometimes it's the areas in which they have to speak up at. So, you know, as an agency, most people know where agencies are, what you're going into those agencies for, and so forth. So some people may have an issue with that. So that's where we private service come into play. That's where I have grown in my business, because there are a lot of people that really don't want everyone to know what's going on. Most agencies have a board, committee, and all these things. So, you know, some people worry about that and some people don't, but a lot of people do. And so for me, I find that it's just that one time, and somebody may meet you, somebody may see you, they may just feel you. You know, it's a matter of feeling comfortable. And so wherever somebody chooses to go, whenever they choose to get there, we all as service providers have to be there for them. There's no one set fix. And any victim of domestic violence, me being a survivor, knows that it can take you an hour to talk up, and it could take you 10 years. It took me how many years to speak up? So, you know, and I'm a professional, you understand, at it. So, you know, we have to be able to say, we're going to give you a variety of services, and this is who they are. Don't be afraid to share all our services, because we have to remember the objective in all of what we're doing today and all of what we do every week when I come on or anybody else comes on your behalf is because we want to know that we can help you the best way we can to give you an abuse-free lifestyle. And whomever is there to service you to do it, that's our end result. So my answer to that is, whenever they're ready, they will speak up. And whenever they're ready, we need to let them know our faces are visible. My face used to be quiet, but I realized too that we can't remain quiet because people need an option. And that's all I have to say about that.
Ms. Butterfield, from
Yes,
your
ma'am.
end, from your end, could you elaborate or share?
Please repeat the question.
Okay, the question is basically a trust issue from, you know,
Okay.
some non-Bermudians in terms of reaching out to the right entities, as well as some may not know
Yeah.
where to go, being stifled by their partners, etc.,
Yeah.
may not
Yeah.
know where to go. And like
Yeah.
I said, just reaching out to a person who
Yes.
they feel like, wow, that
Yeah.
could be a relative of my spouse, etc.
Yeah, yeah. That's a real issue. And as Tina coined it in the beginning when she said, you know, if you're in a unhealthy relationship, you have trust issues. And I can only imagine as a woman going through an experience in a foreign country. I've actually lived abroad twice with my daughter. Both I was single, but once after I was recently divorced. And absolutely, it was very difficult to know who to trust. So as a support service, though, I think it's our responsibility. You know, some people call up for support and they kind of tiptoe around what they really want or what they really need. And we all know how people use the analogy of their friend needs help. So understanding, being empathetic and non-judgmental to women who are going through a situation, I think it's key. And being patient, giving them the information that they need and allowing them the time when they are ready to approach you or anyone else that they feel comfortable being with.
Thank you. I don't know if
I'm sorry. If I can just add one more thing.
Sure.
The Women's Resource Center, we have intentionally created an environment that when you walk through the door, which is locked, you cannot just walk in, It reminds us of a spa. You know, it's just a really nice, comfortable, safe area. And it also intentionally helps women when they walk through the door to feel empowered.
Yes.
Which I think is very important, that they know that, you know, people can feel when there's angst in an atmosphere, particularly if you're going through something yourself, you're sensitive to that. So we intentionally ensure that when a woman has the courage, and it takes courage to walk through that door when she needs any kind of support, that we're there to meet that need. And I saw someone make a comment that it's embarrassing, and you're absolutely correct. It is embarrassing to us as women when we find ourselves, you know, in that situation. I personally have been through a couple of very unhealthy relationships, and as a professional, and you know, you're embarrassed to let someone understand and know that, hey, I've been here and done that, you know. So
and I think it's so important that we continue to have this dialogue, and you know, it's so important because let me just make mention really quick. When Siobhan reached out to me 2 years ago, Siobhan, we've been working together for a couple of years, and 2 years ago, and a lot of people don't know, but you know, and we've had several series and different things, but you know, when she reached out to me, one of the first things she said was that, you know, you're so open, and I just feel we have a connection. You know, I feel comfortable talking to you about the various things in which she's been tasked with by people that's entrusted in her, right? And so we're going to remember that it's all about collaboration. It's all about being able to be there for when people need you. It's all about having that openness. It's all about sharing with one another. It's all about saying, you know, Black woman power, let's just put that in there. But it's all about being a part of a community together for the betterment, and keeping, I always say, if we keep our objective in mind, the betterment of the community, a lot of what our community goes through, a lot of struggles women have, even with embarrassment, shame, and even on our jobs, you know, people have to realize that domestic violence is broad. People abuse on their job in every aspect, right? I just think it's so broad. That's why we need to bring this about. That's why we need to bring this conversation out there. Let me just throw this in there because I saw something that somebody had mentioned here, and I'm not too certain if we can answer it because we don't have the Department of Immigration here, but don't worry, they will be here in one of our series. Does the Department of Immigration have the right to grant status despite a Bermudian not signing, where it can be shown that the status is being used as a tool of control and intimidation by the Bermudian spouse?
I think that question is very deep.
I think that's something immigration might be able to.
I think immigration should be able to answer that. And I do also believe that if you are denied your Bermudian status based on the fact that your spouse has not signed and you appeal to the minister, maybe the minister may consider that a reason for a reason to grant it, because you can always make an application there, and that's a possibility that can happen, but it's always up to the particular minister at the time what position they may take. But you do have an appeal process if it's denied.
Okay. And another question I just wanted to answer really quickly before we hang up, I know it's getting time, is that if someone says, is it advisable for friends or family to approach the abuser? So listen to this. That's very unsafe. You know, there have been instances, I've been in them personally, I've been in several instances with other people where you have witnessed this person battering their partner. You know, it would all depend on the relationship you have with that person. It depends on so many things. And so that's something I wouldn't advise you to do, or see that person by themselves and pull them aside and say, if you do this and this and that, I will do this. Because what you can do is you can literally cause that person's life. You can cause them to be behind closed doors. You can cause them to be beat really, really badly. So I really don't advise you to intervene in that situation. Now, if it's your son and they're in your home, or your daughter and they're in your home, and you have control and you physically or visibly see it, if you know who your children are, if that was my children, I'll intervene because I have a close relationship with my children. And I know for a fact they're not going to make that mistake and lash out on money. So I would intervene, but you got to be very, very, very careful with that. Very careful with that.
We have another question. It says, does the Women Resource Center offer any kind of training services for non-Bermudians and spouses of non-Bermudians? Ms. Butterfield?
We don't offer specific group group trainings as such. However, there is one-on-one. You can come in with an issue and sit down and talk to either myself or a counselor. The only thing that we do offer is a workshop about sexism that talks about some of the issues that women go through and some of the issues that to help men to understand some of the issues and challenges that women go through. And that is always attended by non-Bermudians. So that's the closest thing that we have.
Okay, thank you. You want to read this one more question? Somebody has there. I don't want to leave nobody out. It says, I agree that we should not force but continue to encourage them to report victims, to report or to reach out to the assistant agencies. Yes, always remind them that you don't have to always report and pursue the matter, but they can report for information purposes. The positive to this is that when they are ready, there will be a running log of the domestic violence matters that have occurred. Yes, and we spoke about this earlier, actually. We spoke about reporting anyway, reporting 10, 15, 20 times, 100 times, just so that you can have that running log for whatever the case may be. You may decide you want a divorce because of something totally different, or you may decide you want a divorce because you now just want to walk away from this relationship, and they may say all sorts of things about you, and maybe a fight that occurs. You can have that backup to say, you know what, I've reported 15, 20 times, so I have my support. And that's basically as a support for you to back you up. So, yeah.
I have a question. A recent responder in the community stated, I assume he was a gentleman, he stated that please don't attach the pandemic for the domestic violence or abuse. Make better life choices. These women, and this is his quote, sorry, these women and small number of men who choose to live with abuse is usually due to their broken home upbringing. Is that the cookie cutter? Tina, I'm using your word. Is that I mean, in everybody's case?
No. And go, Tina, I know you have a lot to say
Samir,
about this.
Go ahead, Samir. No, let Samir answer.
Listen, I will say that, and I noticed another comment from another male about not male bashing. Nobody's come here to male bash. I want men to understand that we don't come into these relationships looking to mess you up. People don't get married for the purposes of thinking that they're going to be a hell or go through hell. I'm excuse my language, but you know, and then they end up in here and they get here and they go in through hell. And it's sometimes it's the root cause of whatever that man might be going through, his insecurities. These are things that you should try and look at. And when you see these red flags in the beginning, then cut your relationship short from jump. Don't even go down the road of marrying that person. A lot of people get married for so many different circumstances outside of why they should be getting married. And that's a very true statement if I'd ever heard one. Okay. And that's across the board, Bermudians, non-Bermudians. And so you have to really, really look and say, hey, this is the person, this is who you choose. You know, now it's a problem. It's not a male bashing situation. And it's not just COVID-19, you're right. We literally, this could be going on from before. You could have been dealing with this whole time, but it makes it worse because the person is home 24/7 now. So that's what's really bringing it out, because as a married spouse, and because I've had to be forced to stay at my house all this time, me and my husband have taken have grown, you know, so that shows that there's a relationship there. But then many people have realized that their relationship was just sand, and it's completely imploded because you have to be at home with the person. So is making better life choices. I agree. Life choices are very important. Picking better partners is very important from the beginning. And if you know that that person was somebody else, was with somebody else, and they might have experienced things, don't think that that person is different just because they with you, you know. That person, you can't change a man's personality. People can only change themselves.
Absolutely. They just go through the emotions like they did to get that person, the next person, the next person. But to your to a response to your answer, as it relates to, you know, everybody who finds themselves in a domestic violent relationship have watched it growing up, or it happened to them in the home. But let me just say, I was one. I never saw my mom in one fight, right? So it does have something to do with sometimes you might have seen it as you were growing up. Yes, you might have. But there are those who haven't seen it, but have found themselves in these relationships because they love this person. And the flip side of that is there are those who have seen it and choose not to get themselves in those situations. And then there are those who have seen it and say, you know what? I'm going to fight this. I'm not going to be like that person, and find themselves. It's like that mouse on that little turning wheel. They keep you running wheel. But the other thing I'll say is that those who find themselves in domestic violence relationships, who have never seen it, who have good parents, loving and kind parents, sometimes they find themselves in that relationship after realizing they love this person, and then they see these behaviors, and then they're like, what is this? Oh my goodness, I love him. Maybe I need to help him. Oh,
Right.
he has mental health issues.
Exactly.
Oh, I can't leave
Exactly.
him now because he's having
That's
mental
right.
health struggles.
That's right.
You know, what does a committed, you have two parents that are loving and committed to one another. They hung in there. Death do you part. And that's what they've done. They raised their children, their loving, close family. So you've been taught to support. You've been taught to support that husband or wife in spite of. So now you're replicating that love and that kind and that mercy and that grace that you've raised up in. So no, you cannot say everyone who's victims of domestic violence or battlers of domestic violence were raised in a home that was violent. It sometimes is quite the opposite.
Absolutely.
right.
And I just want to just make a quick note. I see a comment on there. I come, and I've been a victim of domestic violence in a relationship that I had when I was in university. And to be honest with you, I stayed 3 years in the vicious cycle of it, because I really was in love with that person, or I thought that I was in love with that person. And that relationship was very difficult. So it's true. Things change over time. It happens very quickly, and you don't know how to move forward or get away because of that relationship. And you go back and it's good for a little bit, but then it goes south again very quickly. And it's a constant back and forth. And you always think, like you said, Tina, that person might change, or you could change them, or you could fix them, or we know it's going to get better. And it doesn't. You know, and that's just the reality at the end of the day. And we all have to be real with ourselves. I had to be real with myself. I had to be like, no, this is the end. And it took a family member to step in to call their father to say, no, that's it. No more conversation between her and him anymore. That's it, you know, because my another family member witnessed behavior that was just outrageous, and they went and reported it to my family member and was like, call their father right now. She needs to get out of the situation. And I couldn't. I wasn't brave enough to do it. I wasn't brave enough to do it.
And you know, I wanted to also add, that was going to be my next question. Thank you, Samantha. Yeah, thank you. Has anyone on the panel been affected by domestic violence? Because I think it's so important to be real. I think during this time, as what we're fighting for people to be real, it's important that we also share, because we are human, we are women, we are normal, everyday women that have experienced domestic violence, many of us. And I think the more people see us talking and speaking about it, the more they realize that, you know what, this happens to just about tons of women, and I'm human too. So I don't have to keep it a secret anymore. It's not a secret.
Yeah. I just wanted to add two things to answer your question, but also to say that this coronavirus, this pandemic, if we could find something positive about it, it has uncovered things that have remained dormant for years, things that we didn't want to speak about, things that we didn't want to see. And if there's something good about it, I think that's it. And the issue with domestic violence is certainly one of them, because, you know, so many people are talking about it now, and we didn't see that before. Nobody was interested. No one wanted to talk about it. It was hush hush. It was a skeleton in the closet. And the only ones that talked about it were those helping services that helped women or the police, you know? So I think that's a major positive. And yes, I've definitely also been a victim of domestic violence. Nobody hit me. Nobody can hit me. I'm one of them that will hit back. So, but I did experience emotional abuse and severe control. And as I said earlier, you know, I was the new director at the Women's Resource Center. And I didn't even know it at the time. I didn't know it because you don't want to be, I had been divorced before. You don't want the stigma of another divorce. Don't want to fail. You don't want to be a black statistic. And we were in church, a real big one.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all of those things cause you to stay as well. And it was really all emotional abuse. And I always say that's just as severe as physical abuse because you can't see it. Nobody knows that you're going through it because you learn to hide your emotions to protect yourself.
And you can,
I wanted to
add
I was going to go into that as well. I wanted for women to know as well, domestic violence is a very wide topic. And it could be like Mrs. Butterfield say, it could be mental, emotional. There can also be financial abuse that Bermudians and non-Bermudians may be going through. So it could be a wide topic. And like you say, in order for someone who's listening or even ourselves to get healing, we have to feel comfortable. Each person is different. We're not forcing anyone to come out today, but if you feel within yourself and you want to reach out privately, please do. But like I said, I've worked, for those who may not know me, I've worked as a makeup artist for many years, and in the beauty industry, I'll dive into that. And I have covered up black eyes. I have covered up bruised lips. I had covered up bruises on the arms, on the neck, a choke, you name it. And not to say, divulge any former client's information. Working in certain industry, as a hairstylist, as a makeup artist, you tend to have a bond with your clients, and some feel, for the most part, I've had clients who sit and they would just release. And all I recognize, I'm not an expert or anything, but I sat and I listened. I never revealed anything, a lot of rights I may not have known, but I just was a listening ear for them. And I tried to encourage them, as much as I could. So when I thought about, I saw Mrs. Law, she revealed, and that was that probably was very hard. She can attest to that. But I thought about me forming a foreign women's club in Bermuda from 2014, very private membership. And we have a diverse range of women from many different nationalities, speak various languages. And I know that some things that, they probably feel comfortable sharing, they might not feel as much, sharing outside of it. So I really wanted to collaborate with the various entities so we could bring about awareness of domestic violence, because it's I'm going to mention we have the Black Lives Matter movement, and there's been a worldwide, or I should say a global support for it. I do support it, and I'm sure most of us do. I would love to see, however, that there's a collaborative effort. I see someone mentioned privately about RISE, R-I-S-E. Mrs. Butterfield, I'm in treating you and inviting you as well. Or we'll work with you. You're the organization and the charity and Center for Abuse, you name it. I would love for us to take that, that more, momentum and just spread every 9 parishes in Bermuda and beyond, and to just raise awareness about this, because this is a serious pandemic as well of human rights, from control to, like you say, emotional abuse to you name it. And I'm hoping that someone who's watching, by way of Facebook, or who's listening, you don't have to come out now, but just hopefully these questions and this expert panel is able to answer a nagging question or concern you may have. And just to reiterate what everybody said, you don't have to go through it alone. We are here, and we as women must continue to support each other, whether we speak the same language or not, whether we're from Bermuda, Bahamas, the Caribbean, you name it, the US, UK, whatever color we are. We have families. We matter. Foreign women matter. Bermudian women matter. Women matter.
Yes.
So I just
Yes.
wanted to express that.
And we also
Tina?
have to, we also have to,
I just,
we also
sorry, I
have
just want to mention also that
Okay.
we know that domestic violence is with women as well, and some men might be suffering in silence too.
Yes.
So if you are a man suffering in silence, don't think that this is only a woman's thing.
Yes.
This is a everybody thing.
everybody.
Come forward. Come
Human.
forward.
Human. If you
Human
have
thing.
rap,
Human
yep,
action.
it's human. And the other thing I wanted to share is that, you know, my plight has always been to fight for more awareness in the community. Let me tell you why. Because me coming from a background of criminal justice, I can assure you that this doesn't just affect that woman or that man. We're talking about children coming up in the system watching all of this. So we're not just affecting ourselves. Oh my goodness, I got a black eye, a bruised lip. We got children watching this, right? And so we have to be mindful that this is a traumatic experience, not just for us, but for them alike. And so the more we talk and raise awareness, we're not just speaking for ourselves. I don't have a problem with speaking my truth. I don't have a problem with saying I was in a relationship for years and I was abused and I felt stupid and probably, and I know I looked stupid to people. I don't have a problem with that because I'm free from that. I walked away. But there are those who remain. And I remember being that person, that middle person who said, I'm not going to, it wasn't Santa Gangs abuse at that time. It was the abuse Santa, I think, or something like that. But I remember back then, because I was young for one, I wasn't comfortable with doing it. And neither was I wanted to go to Women's Resource Center. I didn't want to go to any agency because I felt like, oh my goodness, who's going to know my mama? Who's going to know my family? It's too many people in this organization. So that's where Tina Laws came into place. That's where Under Construction came into place.
Yes.
I walked in my purpose, and I walked in it because I remember being that person that didn't want to work in its entirety or with the whole organization. I wanted to meet that one person, and I had the opportunity to work with that one person. So when I decided to found Under Construction, I said, I'm going to be that woman, to be that middle person for that person who's not ready to go to an organization as yet, or for that person who may not feel like organizations they're fit. I wanted to be that person, to be that private source for them. And so far it's been amazing, but I just keep saying we have to talk and we have to talk and we have to not be afraid to collaborate. Like Siobhan said, Siobhan came to me, I'm all about collaboration. With Women's Resource Center, anybody usually who I go to, when I first started my business, I also went and spoke with Santa Gangs Abuse, Laurie Shields. So I've been out there, everybody's been receptive. So now let's do something about it together. Because guess what? No man is an island, and alone we're not going to do it. But guess what? Alone I will attempt. And so with all of us in here today, we now have another audience to say, this is what we want to do. And for all of you non-Bermudian women, non-Bermudian man as well, we support you. We support you.
Detective Smith, she
Yes.
have put her information for those
Yes.
who may need to reach out to her. Your view on, I would like to ask, if I may, without you divulging anything we should know, are there any upcoming initiative or training on behalf of Bermuda Police Services in regards to domestic abuse victims?
Not from my knowledge at this time. I know we are in a situation where we're kind of at a standstill when it comes to training right now. I don't know what it will look like as the months and days go by. But what I will say from what Tina and Miss Smith Bean was saying, I realized from this pandemic that it was a definite rise in domestics, period. Where I used to see on a daily, or should I say on a monthly basis, I used to see maybe 50 incidents that are reported to the police. I'm not talking about the unreported because I don't have knowledge of this. And I went in the first month of shelter in place to like 80 something reported incidents, whether it was domestic abuse, whether it was family members just bickering over everything. And I realized that a lot of it has to do with alcohol. Alcohol is a big problem when it comes to a lot of the reports that I have seen. And it's scary because, you're home, you can't go nowhere. You weren't able, you had to go shopping on the days of your last name. You couldn't go within a half a mile radius from your house. For me, that's just like down the road. So it was a lot. So to see that spike because of the pandemic, and it opening the doors for domestic abuse situations that took place as well, was kind of scary for me as a police officer. A lot of the people that I did deal with during the shelter in place were receptive to a lot of the things that I had to say. And then there were those that are just not willing, don't really want to talk, or the ones that I dealt with that aren't Bermudian. And as a police officer, I felt vulnerable. Like I felt like I couldn't do something for those individuals, and not because I couldn't with what tools I had in place, but I couldn't because most of us are only able to talk like what we're doing right now, and some people don't want that. Some people don't want to talk to you, on a screen through Zoom. Some people don't want to talk like that. And so for us in the service, like we're really starting to really, like, a lot of things have really opened our eyes, in the way that we're doing things, as well as how we are, how our response units are responding to these jobs and how much information we're gathering. So there's going to be some changes as the years and months go by, but as it relates to training right now, from a budget perspective, we're not able to do that right now.
Thank you.
Dana?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So in closing, because time here is ticking, right? I know, and we really appreciate you ladies' time. We appreciate you coming out and doing this. In closing, I just wanted to know, for anybody who wants to answer, can you recall a time in your career that you felt helpless in assisting a foreign victim of domestic violence, and why? And Jeanette Smith, you just spoke about, how you felt, helpless. Has there been a time when any of you have felt helpless and in helping a foreign woman, and why?
I'll jump back in.
Okay, yes, that's fine.
So I can remember an incident that was probably like 2 years ago, with a young female. I believe the female was approximately my age. I'm 35. And she had a young child married to a Bermudian. And the way the report came in, it was kind of weird, how the information came forward. And what I had learned was that the husband was controlling her physically, by, abusing her physically in the presence of at that time would have been a 9-month-old baby. And he was locking her in the house, and controlling her funds, so financially. And for me, that was scary, because at that time I was new as a DVLO, so I was learning the role, and trying to add my own, stamp my own presence on it at the same time was a lot. And I really relied on the help of Miss Laurie Shield from Stand Against Abuse, because I was honest, I did not have a clue. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know what other information I could give this woman, and all she wanted to do was leave the island. He wouldn't give her the documents to leave. He held on to her passport and the child's passport. And as you know, passports belong to the country, not the individual. And so it was scary. That was definitely a scary moment where I felt helpless, and I really didn't know how else to help this woman. And she really wasn't trying to prosecute the individual.
Was she a spouse? Was she a spouse of a Bermudian?
Yes, she was.
You should tell her next time, and it depends on what their financial situation is, but they can always go to legal aid and seek emergency legal assistance to make certain applications to get that passport, to get permission to leave, to go through that process, and then you seek the other resources at a time. So always remember, they do have that option depending on their financial situation, because the one thing that I find that is a bar of helping foreign women, and not to put any of my matters out there, is being able to access legal aid, because a lot of people don't have the money. But legal aid has a limited threshold for what you can apply for. And if you fall over that threshold, which I believe is $18,000 as far as they calculate for disposable income, a lot of people fall out of that and still can't afford a lawyer. They don't get it, and they're not given the coverage. So that's a one issue that I find. And so they do have an opportunity to try. And if they don't get it, then it's always an option to seek the help of a magistrate by themselves, but with the support with one of the organizations. And they can go and make an application to the court and say, listen, I need my passport. He doesn't want to give it back to me. And see, the court probably will, make an application, step in. But don't feel like you completely trapped. Definitely run to one of the resources to the centers. And as they indicate, it is confidential. I've seen confidential situations happen, and you may be able to get assistance that way. Don't ever feel like you're by yourself.
All right, thank you.
And always, if you have any other questions as an officer, you can always contact me as well. I can always.
Yes, I love it.
Simone, if you could put your information in the chat, please.
Yes,
so they can answer. I have a quick question for Mrs. Butterfield. Now, you mentioned about, I think, working in collaboration with the Habitat of Humanity in regards to the housing. And I know you focus on families, but what about that foreign woman who is out there who may not have children?
The center is really for women, and it is for women who are, for whatever reason, even trauma they've been through, are underperforming in life and just cannot seem to, make ends meet. Women, as far as we are concerned, are our clients. So they do not have to be Bermudian. They do have to be residing in Bermuda. And that can include, as I said, we'll have a couple of, maybe 2 or 3 lock-off rooms for women in different situations. So no, they do not have to be Bermudian, and they do not have to have children in order to be a part of our program. We are actually in the midst of a pilot program now called Transformational Support Services for Women. And they learn life skills, they learn job skills, they learn all kinds of skills, decision-making skills, and some of the things that I've talked about already. That's a pilot program that we have 10 women in, which it's funded by HSBC Limited, and it will be run simultaneously with this Transformational Living Center, but it will also be offered to women who do not live in the center. So the entire community can, be a part of that.
I think someone is asking for your contact information, Mrs. Butterfield, in the chat, please.
I will put it in the chat, definitely.
Tina, go ahead.
What I wanted to share, and thank everybody, because in clears and time's ticking in. I know we could sit here all day and talk about abuse.
Let's keep it going. We could shut.
What I wanted to ask everyone on the panel is, as we move forward from each of these series that Siobhan and I have done and other people have done, what do you see, or how can you see us better performing in our community as it relates to supporting victims of domestic violence? And not just foreign women, not just Bermudian women, but men, children, seniors alike.
Can I start? Sorry.
Sure,
Can I just input?
Yes, you can.
We did mention in the newspaper, so if there's men in the group, non-Bermudian men, not that we're saying Bermudian men don't get abused. However, the essence of these conversations is to drive the conversation or to, kind of answer the questions for those demographic non-Bermudians. So we are planning on having a full men panel, because men do get abuse as well.
All the time,
right?
Yep.
But what I would like to see is a collaborative effort. Unity is strength in numbers, and just how I'll go back to Black Lives Matter. Sorry, everybody, but just how we have the focus from we've had 7,000 persons who turned out. I was one of them till I lost my voice. But anyway, I would love to see us, you know, maybe in some alternative capacity for Center of Abuse, if you're listening, Women Resource Center, RISE, under construction, you name it. My little club can participate. Attorney, Ms. Bean, you have Bermuda Working Women Club as well, and Detective Constable, and anyone that's listening on our platform today. I would like for it to be a community effort. I would like for there to be an open discussion in schools, because we have to understand young people date as well, and some of them are being abused either verbally or may even be physically abused. I would like to see each parish, just how they have the various representative of the parishes, that it be an ongoing discussion. I would like to see legislative changes. I am
That's
willing.
it right there.
Yeah, because from what I've made to understood from persons who shared with me, they feel the system is the issue. It's not so much the entities, because you can only go so far, and hearing everything in regards to how the systems are set up, and the entities can change it. So we need to either perhaps get our premier on, or get a discussion from a legislative standpoint. And then go from there. Just how the Black Lives Matter have the momentum, ongoing pandemic is domestic violence. And that, as we could see, it could have psychological damages, emotional, mental, and God forbid, you know, someone lose their lives.
Yeah.
So I would love to see ongoing, in the face, you know, just out there, you know, out there. If the abuser get upset, we still out there. Maybe they'll stop.
Because
just be in the face, and a staunch law that if you hit your spouse, whether female, male, that, you know, the consequences, we have to. And no sort of no sort of kind of patting around it, or jumping around it, or skipping around the topic, or kicking the can down the road. We have to put ourselves out there. I am willing to work on behalf of, you know, my group, and, you know, I'm willing to work with any entity if you would have me. And, you know, like I said, it's a matter that's dear to my heart. And like I said, I've seen it in person. I've covered it up, you know, I was told. So I am passionate about supporting such initiative.
And I think this is why this is so important. You know, when Siobhan first reached out to me, she told me all these dreams, hopes and dreams that she had and all of these things. And I shared with her what I see for Bermuda. But of course, a year and two has gone by. We've all just separated and done our things. And now we'll come back together. One of the things I often say is that in November, December, I had the opportunity to travel to the United States with the ILV program with Women's Resource Center and Cheryl Minus and all of these with the US state. And one of the things that we experienced, which was like hands down amazing. We went to, what was it, 3-4 domestic violence facilities, as well as homeless shelters. We went all over the place. But one of the things that was so important and that I was taught when I was being trained back in 2005, 6, 7 in Florida, as I worked in these facilities, domestic violence facilities, collaboration is key. And I'm not certain if one of us are missing the mark in it, but collaboration is key. And with every meeting that we went to when we was overseas, there were every entity sitting at that table. And even though they might have disagreed with what the other said, guess what? They laughed about it and said, we had lunch together laughing it off. You know, but that's so important. And Bermuda being so huge, and I always crack a joke about that, it's unfortunate that us who work in this field don't work together for whatever reasons there are. And I'm private, so I can do what I like. I can get here and say what I like, you know. So I'm thankful for that. But I think it's so important to collaborate. And as it relates to the laws changing, all of my clients talk about laws need to be changed. But one of the things I want to say to them is, we can't just sit here and have the premier sitting on here. We can't just sit here and have the commissioner sitting, police commissioner. We can't have all these people sitting here if we don't get together and devise what it is that we feel needs to be changed. All have a strength We all come from a background, right? I'm thankful that the background I have has allowed me to see a lot. And all of us have those backgrounds, vast backgrounds, right? And so I think, and me being a survivor, I just, now I can say I'm thankful for my journey, but we all have a background that we could bring to the table. So when are we going to get to the table? We only have one center, a registered charity in Bermuda for domestic violence. Okay, that's Center Against Abuse. And then we have one women's resource center in Bermuda. And now I think RISE is new as of last week or 2 weeks ago. We have the various, I've had a support group. I run it out of Women's Resource Center every week, since last year. So, my thing is we all have that space. We all have those people that we can now get together and see what it is. Let's stop talking about domestic violence is financial, is emotional, is physical, is religious. You're telling me, you're talking to the choir. We know what it is. We know exactly what it is. I can tell you what it is. I can describe it to you. But what we need to now know is, where are we going to go with it? It's nothing wrong with sitting up here looking pretty, talking to you. I can do that real well, right? But let's have some action. Yeah, seriously, let's have some action. Let's now get together and take those hats off of, Bermuda, I'm going to keep it real. We have a control issue. Somebody, this is me. This is my area. This is my area. Well, if we keep the objective and in view, which is the objective of helping people, individuals, humans, to live an abuse-free lifestyle, and those that don't be prosecuted for it. If we keep that in the forefront, we will all be sitting around that table next week, Friday. I've raised both hands to be around that table, and I've done it from the day I opened my business to now. When everybody's ready to sit around that table, let's sit around that table and include our expertise and come up with a plan. What do we want to see the laws changed? And how can we see it happen? How can we affect change in Bermuda? And then let's go to the table with government, because they don't want to have tail stuff, right? So we're going to go to the table with something of substance, and we can't be afraid of sitting to that table and speaking what it is. So I think as we move forward, Samantha, I'm almost finished. As we move forward, we have to think about what it is that we really want to see changed in Bermuda as it relates to domestic violence. And then when we do go and say power to the people, we're going with a direct message that we are no nonsense. And guess what? From this point on, we will no longer allow this type of behavior. We will no longer allow this and that. We need to go with something. We can all get there and rally all we like, but if we go with emptiness, it's going to be a waste of time. And so let's just get together and do what has to be done.
I think I agree with you 150%. As far as you getting together and putting pen to paper and figuring out how to solve some of these problems. But I also think keeping the conversation alive and also getting to the root of the issue by dealing with the individuals, by making sure that we have those particular therapies that need people who are struggling with residual baggage that they have. That's why people hurt people. And if we're not dealing with the root issues and fixing the person or dealing with the individuals, then we're not looking at the real problem, because it's people who get in these relationships and they then act in a particular way. And so we have to fix those persons. And yeah, we can prosecute people. It's against the law for you to assault someone, and you can go to prison. But what happens when they come from prison? What happens when they finish doing their time, and what services do they receive while they're in prison? I'm a big advocate of being able to be rehabilitated, but sometimes prison isn't the right place for these individuals. Sometimes a totally different rehabilitation program is the thing for that individual. Figuring out, get to the root. Why are you angry? Why are you violent? Why do you feel that you should say these words or do these things to this person?
Absolutely.
And then you start seeing that why they're doing these things, and then you get to the root. Without getting to the root, we only masking the problem. We only put in lipstick on the pig, just like Siobhan has said. She's covered these black eyes and makeup, and that's not helping the situation. We need to get to the root and continue the conversation.
Yeah, the Center Against Abuse does have an abusers program that I'm aware of. So that's, making that more awareness of that is just as important.
Yeah. I think they've had it for years. They have a for men as well. They work with men, sexual assault victims, and all that. But because that's the only agency in Bermuda, everybody should know where it is. Everybody should know what it's about. Everybody should be able to be privy to that. So everybody should be enlightened. And if nobody in Bermuda knows about Center Against Abuse, we're doing something wrong again. You understand?
I'm
what's
sorry.
available. You know, they need to be,
Yeah.
everywhere should be aware of
Yeah.
Santa against abuse, you know?
But like Siobhan said, yes, absolutely. I was in the march as well, Siobhan, and I had such pride in being there. It was phenomenal for me. But we should have a march like that
Yes.
for domestic violence or
Absolutely.
violence against women, period, or violence, period, violence and abuse, period.
Yeah.
That is
Yes,
something
I
that we
agree.
should be just as
That's absolutely.
angry about.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
to me, the time is now because there's such an awareness of it.
Absolutely.
Like I said earlier, one of the wonderful things about this pandemic is it's uncovered so many things
Yes.
that were simmering.
Yes. Yes, and you know what? I'll go back to what you said, Simone, because what we're doing is like a pipeline. You're sending them to prison. They come out rehabilitated. Sarah's moved on. They're going to find a new Sarah all over again. They go back to prison. They go get help. They got a new Sarah. It's just we just keep rotating our Sarahs. So something needs to give for both our victims and battlers. And I mentioned this before.
But that's where we come in to empower Sarah if she's willing to come and give her the tools she needs not to make those decisions.
Correct.
Absolutely.
I wanted to point out that someone is here from RISE, and she said they are working to create a collaborative effort to support organization right now, and they're hoping to, I guess, collaborate or speak with government as well. So we privately chat. I would like for all of us, Ms. Butterfield, you spearhead, we get together and let's do this. Let's do this.
We will support.
Women lives matter, Black abuse victims' lives matter.
Yes.
Thank you.
We can do it.
Let's have it. We talked about it. So I'm a woman of action, as you notice, right? This solo woman just acts. So what I would like to see now, because that's why I came out in 2017, or 16. I said, look, all this quiet and silence in this island, something's got to give, right? So let's now act. I've publicly, and Ms. Swan's here to represent Santa Against Abuse. And like I said, Laurie has sat with me when I first started my business. I offered everything that I have. So we're all open to it. So now let's get together, put on our professional, sensitive, mature, collaborative hats, and let's make it happen. That's it.
Detective Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
We definitely, kudos. I don't know if he's listening, the commissioner of police, but I'm sure he would support us as well. But any last
guy.
Yeah.
He's pretty cool.
I like him a lot.
I appreciate him very
in the
much.
Community. Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
so I could see the change is here. But from a police services perspective, what would you like to see? Your last words, please.
I think I agree with what everyone has said. It's definitely something that's important that needs to be awakened. It definitely needs to be something that we all need to be out making some noise about, because it's and just me being in my role, I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot, and definitely spent enough time on my phone just listening to what some of these complainants have to say, and I don't have experiences like that, so I can only empathize with them, and so it's definitely something that needs to be awakened, and the community needs to, just like the other day, they need to be fighting for there's legislations to change. They have to change, because I think the biggest for a lot of women is like, oh, what you gonna do? Arrest them and then what? He's gonna be on bail? And to be honest, that's exactly what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I went on a course last year in Barbados, and it was an eye opener of what other territories are doing. And I really think that legislation-wise, we need to get on board, because we're 20 steps ahead in certain areas in policing, and we're like 50 years later in others. Yeah. And legislation is the biggest thing that we have against us. Our legislations are old, ancient, and useless. Right. Yeah. They don't work anymore.
Policy change.
You got look at some of the, if you look in legislations, if any of you want to ever go and look up some of these legislations, you'll be shocked to see what year they were actually enacted.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't.
Well, we can bring the movement just like Black Lives Matter with the
Oh, yeah.
getting rid of those statues. We can
Mhm.
bring it to.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if those victims who remain silent because of the various reasons as to why they remain silent, can you imagine how they would feel if they saw each and every one of us going to bat on their behalf? Can you just imagine what you can do for them? That would also open doors for people to speak up more.
Yeah.
Understand? If they can see that, you know what, oh my goodness, I'm not alone. And even if we don't get 7,000 people, because I'm not about the numbers, but even if we don't get 7,000 people come up, it can be 10. They see we're going to bat on their behalf.
Yeah.
That's most important. That's most important.
Yeah.
I agree. And I mean, we can do a retreat as well. I mean, the march is one thing, but we could do a retreat. I mean, all these
Yes.
Darrell's Island and the little islands, we could do a retreat as well.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
I
Siobhan,
believe
we can do a lot of
in
things we could talk about later. Let's just
Right.
close this out.
Yes.
It's been long enough. We've
Time
talked
gotta go.
about other things. Let's just talk about them later and let everybody leave. And thank everybody for the time and thank everybody for taking out, you know, an hour and a half. I've got an appointment to make now. My mom's looking at me really hard. I almost forgot. And so I have to do what she says in spite of. But I thank everyone for showing up and going to bat for us. You know, Police Constable Smith and Elaine Butterfield Women's Resource Center, the Executive Director, and, you know, Simone Smith Bean, who is also a lawyer and barrister and a mother and a wife and a non-Bermudian. You know, we thank you for your time. We thank you, Cheryl, for coming, Women's Resource Center, is so supportive. But Geraldine, all of you know, Razia Swan from Center Against Abuse, and I also know outside of Center Against Abuse, Marcy, and I see, but everybody's name, we'll be here all day. But
and,
I
and
truly
from
thank
Rise as well.
and
Rise
from,
as well.
Wise is here. Yes, I'm sorry. So, okay, right. So all of you, if I didn't mention your name, don't get offended. You got to get on some big girl panties when you're dealing with me. But, you know, let's just do this together. You know, we've opened up our channels. Let's do it. You know, that's all I have to say.
Thank you for having us.
thank you.
Thank you.
Siobhan, thank
for
you
having
very
me.
much. Siobhan is my
Thank
sister.
you.
Thank you very much, sister.
This
Thank
was
you.
great,
Afternoon.
ladies.
Thank you, Miss Butterfield. Thank you,
Oh,
Simone,
thank
Detective
you.
Smith,
Thank
and thank
you
you,
for
Miss
having me.
Laws. And
Absolute
we look
pleasure.
Tina,
forward.
thank you.
We look forward to some upcoming series,
Events.
and we'll deal with the
Action.
men next. We'll deal with the
Yep.
men.
We'll let them know who we're dealing with next when we get them and tie them down.
Yes.
You know what I
Take
mean?
care.
Shit. All right. Take care, guys. Have a
And-
wonderful weekend holiday.
Yes. Enjoy the
Bye,
rest
Bye,
of your day.
everyone, and
All right,
thank
see
you.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
See you later.
Get out of my thing, girl.
Bye. Thank you.
Get out.
Hi, precious girl. Okay, hang out. We'll stay put, Siobhan. Just stay put.